Today we're going to look at the first two solos in Sweet Child of Mine by Guns N' Roses. So it's Slash playing the solos originally, and one thing to notice is that his guitar was tuned down, which he used to do a lot. So his guitar is tuned half a step or 1 fret lower than ours. So it means that mine's in standard at the moment. If I play a note in his tuning, that note would sound like this. So to make things easier, I've kept my guitar in standard tuning, and if you have yours in standard tuning, it will match what I'm doing. And if you want to play along with the song, you can either tune down like Slash did, which makes the strings a little bit loose and makes some of the bends a bit easier, or what's quicker and easier is to just move the whole thing 1 fret lower. When I refer to note names and chord names and things, I'll be talking as though we're in standard tuning and ignoring the fact that they tuned down originally. So the song's in the key of G, and the main chords underneath the first two solos are D, C, G. So when I play through the solo, I've got an acoustic just playing those 3 chords. So it's quite a simple chord sequence. And because it's in G major, what most people would do in the key of G major is find a G, there's one there, and play pentatonic major, which is it's the G pentatonic major. You can also turn it into a proper major scale in the same place. And Slash is using a lot of that scale pattern. Okay, so let's get started with the first solo. So we start off with 14th fret on the 3rd string with your 3rd finger, that's an A note, and we're playing that note and pulling off to a G, which is 12th fret. So to do a pull off, as you probably know, you have both fingers on in the first place. You pick the string, and then this finger comes away and plays that note without using the pick again. So it's, and then we play F sharp there, 11th. And plays that phrase twice. So it's, and then the next one is very similar, starts with the same 2 notes as a pull off, but instead of moving down to the 11 there, we go to the 14 on the 4th string, which is an E. So it's, that's played twice as well. So the first 4 phrases. And then the next one is he just plays the beginning part, the 14 to 12 pull off, but without moving anywhere else. Okay, so the next phrase is a bend, release, pull off. Now bend, release, pull off is something that sounds complicated. It is quite complicated, but it's in almost every guitar solo that you'll ever learn. So it's definitely a phrase to get the hang of. So I'm bending the 14 on the 3rd string, 3rd finger, bending so it sounds like a 16. So 16. And then release, which is where the note comes down again as your finger releases the string back down. So what you hear is the 14 moving up to a 16 and coming back down to 14 again. And on the end of that, we do a pull off to the 12. This is all with 1 pick. So the tricky bit here is to bend using these 2 fingers, which is the standard thing that you would do, and release. And when you get down to here, this finger needs to come out of the way, and this one's on there, in time to do the pull off, like this. So that's a little bit tricky. So all the way up to there we've got and the next phrase, it's the same bend again, but this time it's not a bend and release, so the bend goes up but it doesn't come back down, and your finger can't stay there forever. So what happens on a bend without a release is you play the bend. As you go to play the next note, this part of your thumb touches that string that you've just bent, and then you can let go of it. It comes down silently. This is all the kind of thing that becomes a habit and second nature after it all. So it's... The next note I then play is this 15 here on the second string. So it's from the bend, release, pull off. It's... Okay, and then at this point you need to bend that note that we've just played and release it. So it's... So what you should hear there is 17, 15. But you're staying in one place. So from the bend, release, pull off. And then some people like to swap their fingers at that point to third finger because they find it easier to bend with the third finger. Whichever finger you use out of these two, make sure this one's involved because that's the best finger for helping to push the string up. It's the strongest finger. So we've got 4. Now the finger you use there determines how you play the next bit, because the next note is a bit strange. It's a 4th string bend, which is quite unusual, you don't get that very often. And the simplest way to get this is to pull the string downwards. So if I use my little finger for the previous one, and then play the 3rd finger on this note and pull down with these two. That's a long way. This is where the slightly lower tuning with the slacker strings helps. Now the alternative, which is probably what Slash does, he probably uses 3rd finger for that. And then 2nd finger here, so the 1st finger would help. So that's the whole solo. So I'll just play that from the beginning. Okay, so that's the first solo. I'll quickly run through the second solo as well. This one starts in the same way as the first one. Same phrases. And then at this point, where in the first solo we just did one of these, this time we do 2 of them. So it's... Okay, and then at this point, you've got to move this first finger back to the 11 and do a thing called a pre-bend. And Slash does quite a lot of these and they're really effective, very expressive. And it's where you play, instead of doing a bend and then release, this is where you bend the string without playing it, pick the note and then release it. So all you hear is a note coming down, you don't hear it going up and down. So if I do a bend and release there, it would be this. The pre-bend and release is... It's really effective. It takes some getting used to because you're not hearing how far you need to bend it. You have to judge that without actually hearing it. And the note I'm trying to make this one sound like is the 12. So I want this effect. And then there's 2 ways you can play the next part. In the clip, I played it like this. And then swapped to that finger, because then I want this finger to get this note. But the other way you could play it is to go... Stay there with the same finger. And then this note can also be found here. So you could go a bit stretch. But either way, same note. Then afterwards, play this one as a bend and release. So either or. So up to there, we've got this. again with these same phrases at the beginning, or the same first phrase. And then he just does the pull off without moving down to the 11. So bend on the 14. See, this another bend that doesn't come down again. Straight to that note again, twice. And 13 on the second string. And I think when he plays it live, he'll put more pull-offs and slides and things in. But this is how I think he played it on the original record. So go back to this 15, which is a D, and you bend it up to an E. I'm using little finger, but again, Slash might use his third finger, he does a lot of bends like that. Either way, you get to the sound of the 17. Hold it there, play it twice more, and let it come down. So it's pick the note here. So the second solo up to here is. Phrases left. We've ended up on that note, so now play that same note again and pull off to the 12, and then a little bit tricky this part, you have to hop across to the other 12s on these strings. So okay, then we've got another bend release pull off like we had earlier, same note, 14. I mentioned before that bend release pull off is a technique that's in most solos, and usually in a pentatonic position it will be that note pulling off to that one that we're using. So that is one phrase to really pick up on from this solo. Okay, after that we then do the bend like we did earlier without letting it down. So we stop it here as we play that note. So I mentioned before about the thumb. And then we do a bend on this note, and then pick that note again. So it's the last note, the last two notes, you definitely need to use third finger for this next bend. 17 on the second string, bend that up a tone, which is to make it sound like a 19. And when you get there, when you get the bend to that point, you add this note with the little finger. And they both ring together like this. And what's really neat about that is that the last chord of the sequence, just as it goes back into the end of the sequence, just before it goes back into the next section of the song, is a D chord. Well, if you know a bar chord D, like this, I could move that up 12 frets up the octave. Not very practical to actually play, but it's there. So two of the notes, the highest two notes in that chord are these. If it was down here, it would be those. So the reason why he plays those last two notes like this is because this is the highest note of the chord, the D chord, and this one he's bending it so it sounds like the next note in the chord by bending the string. So it's a fancy way of playing this. And it won't be a coincidence that he does that at the point where it returns to a D chord. He'll have thought about that and he'll know that there's a D chord and you'll know that this is the top part of a D bar chord. So that's the whole second solo. Okay, thanks for watching.